of upcoming events that might be in your wheelhouse of thinking about or attending. We have tree care workshops through the Nebraska Forest Service for coming up this Friday and next Friday. So February 3rd and 10th. I'm going to do a quick screen share. I'll do screen 2. If you can see that, I'll just show you what we're talking about here real quickly. So here's tree care workshops. You can go online to register at the Nebraska Forest Service website, February 3rd and 10th. Sarah's going to talk about funding programs, so I'm not going to do anything about that. But there are plant talks also coming up through the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum. February 9th, Bob Hendrickson and I are going to take questions, just whatever you have about plants. We'll have fun with that. So try to stump Bob on something. February 9th, and then again on the 23rd. Sarah, you're up to be talking about the winter garden. That's going to be fun. What else do we got here? Oh yeah, Winter Tree ID. You all can sign up through through the Nebraska Arborists Association if you would like. Winter Tree ID. We do that in Waverly, February 23rd and 24th. We do it in Waverly because I can go right outside to the park where I planted the trees, so I know what they are and I look like I know what I'm talking about. And then that'll do it, I think, for what we have to talk about coming up, although Sarah might have a few things too.
I have a couple of things, but I'm dropping the registration link for the tree care workshops is in the chat.
All right.
That way people can find that easy. One thing I wanted to share with everybody was you probably see the notification when I start it, but we record these webinars because not everybody who registers can always end up attending. And sometimes you want to go back and see what we said about something. So I record them all and then they get posted to our YouTube page. If you knew we had a YouTube page. So if you just look for the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum on YouTube, we put a lot of our plant talks and webinars, things, anything we can record, we record it and host it here. And I've even made a playlist that is specifically these Waterwise webinars, so you can find them real easy all in one place if you want to share it with somebody who didn't come or go back and see what we were talking about. The only update I really have to share is that our Greener Towns, our Trees for Nebraska Towns, and our Waterwise Landscapes funding programs closed yesterday for planting in 2023 for big projects. So we're going to be reviewing the next few weeks and we'll start talking about the different projects we're going to be working with, which is super exciting. If you're wondering how you can still plant, we will have the 10 free trees, our fall free tree planting will still happen as usual. The registration will be in July. So that has not happened yet for planting this fall. And then we will probably open our plant grants, our little planting projects of, up to 1,000 square feet. We'll probably run an application session for those the same time in July. So we will update you all on that as we get closer. That's all I really have.
Did you touch, I should have paid better attention, Sarah, 10 free trees, right? 10,
Yep, in July.
In July, okay.
Yep. And we'll share more details and that program doesn't change too much year to year. So if you're familiar with it, it'll be pretty similar.
Yeah, and we're gonna, one thing, we call this the Waterwise Landscapes webinar, but it will continue to be kind of a catch-all for all things trees and landscapes coming out of the Statewide Arboretum and the Forest Service going forward. And we're shooting for about every 6 weeks with flexibility as to when we're around to do it, and also the guests we have on. So as I always say, if you have a topic in mind or are willing to serve as a host community to show what you've done, please let me know and we'll pull you on. We had a great discussion last time in November with the Blue Springs group. That was a lot of fun. So let's do some more of that.
Or if there's just a topic, we're kind of pulling up all the things we want you to know. But if there's something that we're not touching on and you want to learn, let us know. We'll find we'll find a speaker if we can't help with the topic, so.
Right on. We want it to be a two-way conversation, so not just us dumping stuff on you. So thanks for attending as always. This makes it a lot of fun. And I'm really happy today to be able to say that we have Kelly Feehan involved, and she's going to give a little program here about the Waterdogs program she and other extension educators developed with Master Gardeners. Kelly Feehan is a Nebraska extension educator for sustainable green space with a focus on community trees, water and pollinator-wise landscapes, residential rain gardens, and weather-ready landscapes. And I know several of us have had the pleasure of working with Kelly on a lot of outreach activities, but also projects in the Columbus area over the years. And she has learned a lot, knows a lot, and can share a lot. So this will be a good conversation. Kelly, how's that? Put the pressure.
Yeah, well, thanks, Justin. I hope I can live up to it. I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can dive right in. Just tell me you can see it. Looking good?
Looks good.
Okay. Yeah, like Justin said, I'm here. I offered to share about our Waterdogs program that I and a team of horticulturists and others developed. Kind of, we got the idea from someplace else, and then we kind of developed to focus on water conservation, and we're working with our master gardeners to do that. So basically, yeah, kind of just a catchy phrase, cute picture. So if you're wondering where we came up with the name Waterdogs. It was kind of based on the picture, but sometimes those catchy names do help. But here's the team. Like we said, we're kind of a subgroup. Our urban water team is focused on, urban areas and urban water management. And we're just a team. We're kind of a subgroup of a larger team, our horticulture, landscape, environmental systems team with UNL. And I just wanted to make sure you saw some of the names there that are on the team. And our main focus is, good water management practices, both for water quality and water conservation. But when this team, every year we kind of look at what programming do we want to do? What are the needs? What can we do? What's a program, kind of a signature program we can work on? And of course, you look at this and we all know that turf irrigation is not always the most efficient thing out there. It is an issue. We see it wherever we go. There's kind of that set it and forget it with automatic systems. They kind of get set at the beginning of the year. They get forgotten. Just kind of set it and forget it. They water whether the soil is dry or not. A lot of them aren't very efficient, like the picture on the left. The yellowing of the lawn on the right. I want to make sure that's not just overwatering. That is actually an iron chlorosis problem, but it is definitely compounded by overwatering as well as hot soil temperatures. So when I see these yellow lawns, I think overwatering, that would be one thing they could try to cut back on to maybe help with this issue. So, but we know it's an issue. So, okay, there's a need here. So we got an idea. The National Association of County Ag Agents, which we're all members of, they share programming in one of their publications each year. So I do want to give credit that we read about these two programs that are done in other with extension at other universities and other states. And we kind of melded the two together to create our Waterdogs program. So what is Waterdogs? It's kind of master gardener driven, like we said before. We're really focusing on educating master gardeners. And I should say extension master gardeners are a group of volunteers who extension trains. They receive training through extension, and then they turn around and they have to give an equal amount of volunteer time back into their community, helping us to kind of extend science-based education and doing other things such as working with demonstration gardens. So if you didn't know what master gardeners were, I really should define them. So our learning objectives, of course, we really wanted to focus on soil health management because part of the issue is just having very compacted soils, especially in urban areas. Those urban soils are not the best. Basement excavation soil, they get overwatered, they get walked on, they tend to get compacted and so on. So to be able to get that, when it does rain, when we do irrigate, to get infiltration, to have healthy root systems. Those are all things that are needed for efficient irrigation and healthy plants. So we wanted to increase the understanding of soil health and how to manage it. Just that understanding of plant water as well as oxygen needs, because we find that people tend to be surprised when we say, well, you're overwatering. Well, how can I overwater? Well, as you know, many of you know that water displaces oxygen in the soil pores, and plant roots need oxygen to grow, to be healthy, to function. So that's one of the ways that overwatering harms. And then we just wanted to increase knowledge, especially of efficient irrigation with automatic systems. Our program, I'm going to go through this briefly, and then future slides, I'll talk about them a little bit more in depth. But in 2021, we started it. We kind of had a pilot program, and we were focused on turf irrigation with automatic systems. In 2022, we want to continue it and keep growing it every year. So in 2022, we had 3 irrigation webinars for education, and we added what we call one block at a time neighborhood workshops. Again, I'll share a little more as we go on. This year, our plans, we're scheduling 3 webinars again in April, May, and June. We'll continue in our one block at a time workshops, try to do some new ones. And we do hope to expand water conservation beyond the lawn and start focusing as well as landscape beds in our gardens. So in 2021, with our pilot program, we did get some grant funding from the Nebraska Academy of Sciences. And if you're not familiar with these grants, they're called PI grants, Public Information Education. The dollars are from the Nebraska Environmental Trust, and the Academy of Sciences implements the grant. But they're small grants. They're very easy applications as far as grants go. And there's 4 times during the year that you can apply for them. So if you're wanting to do some educational outreach in this area, or, it's not just water conservation, it's many other things as well. You might want to check these out because, like I said, it's fairly easy process, and they're usually small grants. Most of ours have been about $3,000, but that's where we got some funding. One of the things we did with funding is we developed these fact sheets, fairly simple fact sheets to share with our master gardeners, who we also hope will share with others that they know. Excuse me, I'm gonna tickle. One of the things we're kind of trying to teach people is how to do an irrigation audit, just to have a better understanding and awareness of their system. And so one of the fact sheets is on that. Again, soil, we're focusing on soil management, managing soil compaction in their landscape, just helping people understand the water needs of the turf grass and the different types of turf grass that we grow in Nebraska, what the actual water needs are. And then just a general one that gave some really good water use guidelines for conservation. And these are available. Anybody could print them off if they, if it would be applicable to something you're doing or something you need. If you just, here's the link. And I don't know, Elizabeth, you're on. Maybe Elizabeth Ekstrom is on, part of our team. I don't know if you want to cut and paste that in the chat box, that'd be great. But if you just Google Waterdogs plus UNL, you'll get to this page, and in the right-hand column, there's a link to each of these one-page fact sheets, and anybody would be welcome to print them off and use them. So our 2021 pilot, well, we had the April webinar that we invited our master gardeners to, and then we decided there were 6 of us on the team that are master gardener coordinators and work with the programs. So we set a goal of each of us feasibly could work with 5 people. So we were hoping to get about 30 people. That was our maximum. And we did have 24 master gardeners statewide that agreed to participate in this pilot. So we were very pleased with that. And what we asked them, they had to agree to shut off their automatic system. And couldn't turn it on unless a soil moisture meter, which we purchased with the grant, or a screwdriver test, or just the turf signs. We tried to encourage them to use a combination to determine when the soil was actually dry and irrigation was needed. So rather than, again, on a certain time, runs every 3 days for 15 minutes or something like that, is the soil actually dry? Is moisture actually needed? And then we did ask them to collect some weekly data on rainfall, if they irrigated, if they didn't irrigate it, if the moisture meter showed the soil was dry or not. And that kind of helped them to be citizen science. I think got them more involved, more engaged with it, and increase their awareness of what they were doing. So again, they all of them had already participated in the April webinar, and it was from that group that we asked, so who wants to continue and help us do this pilot? And they received the soil moisture meter. We also did a soil test on each site because we wanted them to be more aware of their soil and understand it. And then we did one-on-one education at their homes. And that was part of the reason we limited it to, 4 to 5 to 6 for each of us, because it takes some time. So for example, I had 5 master gardeners in Platte County, and I set up a time to go to their home. We kind of practiced using that soil moisture meter, the screwdriver, you stick it in if it's easy to push in. If it feels cool when you take it out, if there's a little bit of soil attached to it, so there's probably enough moisture in that soil that you don't need to irrigate. The moisture meters, I will tell you, these were $10 moisture meters, and they kind of worked, they kind of worked. And that was kind of the feedback that we received from our master gardeners, because that was another thing we wanted to do. If we're going to encourage people to do these things as master gardeners, what did you learn? What can we share with others that would make this more effective or understandable? So we also tested each of us with that grant. We got penetrometers, and which test soil compaction. We know that's an issue for efficient irrigation. You get more runoff sometimes than soaking in. And we collected the soil sample that day to take in. And we conducted an irrigation audit on each of their systems. And this took the longest. It probably took me anywhere from 3 to 5 hours at each of the 5 homes to do this. And because you have to do each zone. And we did tuna cans, you need about 20 tuna cans. So I don't know how many or cat food cans. So I think as a team, we were working on those, but they do have catch cans you can order. But for this pilot project, we did go ahead and use the tuna can. And we conducted that irrigation audit, and each of the master gardeners received a set of those fact sheets. So just a few pictures here. This is just of doing the irrigation audit. This is 2 separate master gardeners' homes. And set out, we flagged them. We set out those tuna cans about 10, I can't remember if it was 10 or I think it was 10 feet apart. And then we ran each zone for about 15 minutes. And then you kind of go back and you look at how much water is in each can. We measured it, looked at it. This shows, it wasn't on every home. We know those systems are fairly inefficient or ununiform, I should say. And on every home that I did, there might be one can that had a few drops, and there might have been another can that had a ½ inch. So, and we tend to irrigate for those spots that start to look dry. It's like, oops, if we do shut off our system, they still tend to turn it on when those spots, a few dry spots show up. So I'm not an irrigation specialist, but if there's a way we can make those a little bit more efficient, or we would tell people, maybe if you can't change it, maybe just do a little supplemental watering for that one spot rather than watering and overwatering the entire yard. So these are some things that they kind of showed. You can show here a lot of them when we were doing these audits, the systems run when they're in bed in the morning, as they should. So they were kind of eye-opening on some of the things that they saw, like, here how much water was running down the street. We ran this thing for 15 minutes and the water had reached, practically all the way to the stop sign. And, my master gardener was like, whoa, and this was a new construction. And so the soil was pretty compacted as well. And she was made very aware of that. And she's core aerated a couple of times already. And she said it's really helped. Other things they noticed are 2 different locations. This is my vehicle parked there. And in both situations, both the master gardeners go, oh, I didn't know that was going on. They were hitting my vehicle in both cases. And we don't need to water pavement, as we often say, pavement will not grow. So just doing these audits, they were pretty eye-opening and kind of create increased awareness. And I know at least this master gardener had her irrigation person come out and make some adjustments for her. And she and her husband were able to make some adjustments themselves. So sometimes it's just a matter of, once a month or at least once a year, turning the system on when you can't see it, when you can see it. And see what's going on and what adjustments might need to be made, and that can hopefully improve efficiency. Yeah, other things that they noticed, one of my master gardeners was this shrub had overgrown this nozzle right here. And so the water was not going out on the turf at all. There was just a big puddle right here. Which is not necessarily very good for the shrub, but the lawn over there was pretty dry. And so again, if you're turning your system on because you see one dry spot that looks stressed, you know, there's issues there. So these are some of the things they learned. At the end of the year, we did have a fall Zoom with these 24. We just said, what did you learn? You know, what did you like about this? How can we improve it? I'll let you just kind of read some of these. We really appreciated the comments that we had, you know, definitely reduced irrigation. And this was in 2021, and 2021 was pretty darn dry. As I remember, we had no snow that winter. It was dry and we didn't have much water. You know, noticing inconsistency across those zones made me aware of watching rainfall. Turn off the system if you know it's going to rain. One person said they only watered 7 times the whole summer, and normally their system would run, they would turn on about 2-3 times a week. And doing this, they only watered 7 times. And that was in 2021, and it was fairly dry. Just brought awareness, led me to realize my neighbors water way too much. And that's what those comments were kind of what led to us doing the 1 block at a time neighborhood workshops. And we also had, like, I had one master gardener where the neighbor asked what was going on. She told him. So for the rest of the summer, he only turned his system on whenever she turned her system on. So that was a fun thing to hear about and make you realize that, you know, you can have some impact on some neighbors and you might not change any of them. So one lady, and she was so dedicated that when she went on vacation, she turned her system on because she was going on vacation, but she watched the rainfall. And when she saw it was going to rain, she called her neighbors and said, go turn my system off. So I'd say that takes pretty good dedication. And again, normally water Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but this year that person had it off most of the summer. And most of them said their lawns look perfectly fine. I like the last one. Got my husband to understand we could actually shut it off. So these were some of the comments. This was some of the feedback we got. So I hope that shows impact. Again, that 2021, we actually had 96 master gardeners across the state that participated in that webinar for education. And then from that was where we pulled those 24. And we did some informal surveys with a Qualtrics survey, and then we also did some more formal, and I'll get into that in the next slide. And this is kind of a combination of that, but you can read there. I don't have to read it to you. Pretty, you know, the majority of people really felt that they had saw improved efficiency. They improved their soil health practices. I don't know after 2021 how many of them had time to do that, but I know quite a few of them were planning to start core aerating. They hadn't core aerated for a while, and core aeration pulls plugs out of the soil to help relieve the compaction. For those on the call that may not know why soil core aeration is pretty important on lawns. And we tend, you know, we say to do it about every 3 years, but you know, you could do it on an urban lawn, those soils, you know, if you had the time or the money and you could do it once a year, that would be beneficial. 83 at the end, 83% going forward, they plan to keep their irrigation system off and only water when it shows the soil is dry. And then 36% plan to start core aerating on a regular basis. We did do a little bit more formal survey. Bosher is the Bureau of Sociological Research. And, you know, they're a little bit more formal. They actually asked, one of the questions they actually asked was, okay, so you did this. Did you really follow what Extension told you to do? And those that followed it very closely, those are the numbers of percentages that I put in here. And those that followed it somewhat closely, most of those are around 30%. So close to about 90% followed, did what we told them to do, you know, close to 30 to 60%. Or 90% did somewhat to very closely. So they were pretty dedicated. Some of them, you know, they went on vacation and they turned it on, that type of thing. And then, you know, how much program improved their respondent skills. a lot, 56% thought it improved how to efficiently water their lawns a lot, somewhat about 39%. We like these numbers. Soil health management practices, 61% improved their skills a lot, 30% somewhat. And these were master gardeners that a lot of them had been volunteers for a while. These practices, these management practices are things that we teach. Many of them had been taught for a number of years. We had some of them telling us, well, because of the Master Gardener program and what I've learned, I'd already been doing some of these things. So this is an audience that, some of them had already been doing some of this. And we still improved a lot what they were already doing. How much their knowledge increased. That importance of basing irrigation on soil moisture. Not if the neighbor's watering, not if, and I know I have a coworker who works with farmers now, and he asks farmers, he goes, how do you decide when to turn on your system? And they said, well, your pivot. Well, when the neighbor turns his on, I turn mine. So maybe it'd be nice if we could get to that with the homeowners, and we could have one homeowner that only turns it on when it needs to be turned on in the neighborhood. Just like consequences of incorrect manual, using the automatic irrigation system to set it and forget it. 2022, we held those 3 webinars. I realized after I put this 170 in there, some of those are duplicates because I added up how many we had at all 3. And some of those were duplicates, but about 68% of the participants were new. So we grew the program. We then expanded by having these 1 block at a time workshops. And what we did was, and we decided to do these because of the comments of the Master Gardeners saying, well, my neighbors were really curious what I was doing, or, hey, I really notice now how much my neighbors overwater. And then the one neighbor that I had with my Master Gardener where he's like, well, I'm going to turn my system on when you turn your system on. And so we're like, well, let's try this. So we held, I believe it was 4 workshops across the state. Where the Master Gardeners who had participated, we held it at their home. And 2 of these were in homeowner associations. So we feel that maybe hopefully that'll be an expanded impact there. And so we reached about 32 neighbors. And we know these are going to be small, held in a neighborhood, have a few neighbors come over. I did open mine to the public, so a few more would come. But again, we taught them, we did some evaluation, we had some great impacts from the evaluation. 88% plan to change 1 or more lawn care practice. Again, these numbers here, these percentages might look a little bit small, but most of these were of the Master Gardeners that participated in the webinar. And a lot of them said they had already been doing a lot of these practices because of what they'd already learned with Master Gardeners. Those participating for a 2nd year, we asked them what significant changes they had made in 2022 because of their participation in 2021. And I'll just let you kind of reduce number of irrigations. They checked their soil moisture, which is what we want them to do. They were watering less frequently, but deeper, which is what we promote. And deeper is, for bluegrass, that's about 4 to 6 inches. For fescue, it's a little bit deeper. So we do, the other thing we teach is don't water below, where the roots genetically go. You're wasting water. So a lot of them irrigated less frequently, some have adjusted their zones. We were happy with the feedback that we received on impact. I guess that kind of wraps up the Waterdog program. I was just going to share a few other outreach that we do and resources, but does anybody have any questions at this point? Or Elizabeth, anything you want to share on the Waterdogs, or any Justin or Sarah, anything you want to emphasize?
Justin here, I'll ask a question. Is this, is this going to be ongoing, Kelly?
Yeah, I showed you in here in 2023, we have 3 more webinars. As long as we keep having great participation, like I said, we probably had around 60. We averaged about 170, but we had about 60 at each site attend. As long as we keep getting the participation and we keep getting the feedback from people that they're learning and they're using this information and they're applying it, we'll keep doing it. And we're going to do more of the one. I know we have 3 for sure, 1 block at a time workshops. And, this is, we want to stay with the master gardeners. So we want to teach the master gardeners, and then we want the master gardeners to help us teach. And so I would say if somebody out there, if you're in a county or near a county where there is a master gardener program where there's been a participant, maybe call the educator there and say, hey, maybe I'd be willing to host a workshop. We'd like to do one of these at some businesses. We're talking about going to an actual business where we have a lot of those, where those systems get turned on and they're set it and forget it for the whole year.
And what do you do for non-master gardener people that might be interested? Is there a place they can go to learn more?
Yeah. Well, we're extension. So if you go to that Waterdogs website, Waterdogs, it's easiest just to search Waterdogs plus Sheila. Yeah. Our past webinars are on there. The videos are on there. We record the videos and you can watch those. And again, you go to any extension office and we teach. One thing I've done is I purchased not the tuna cans, because I think if we tell a homeowner to do an irrigation audit, you need 20 tuna cans. That's not that feasible.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know, Lent's coming. We could all stack up some tuna cans.
well, I have them in the office. I'd be happy to give them, but I did purchase, if you saw that one picture where it was a catch, it was a plastic catch can. They use it. People that can set up irrigation systems and whatnot, they use them. So you can order those. So I actually ordered a set of 20 of those. And I'm planning to put together a kit that when I do workshops, when I do newspaper articles and say, hey, try an irrigation audit just to learn. It increases awareness. It helps them to learn what's really going on in their system. They probably have to call an irrigation person to come in and make adjustments and so on. But the more aware they are of it, the better. And so I'm going to encourage people can just come and check that kit out, and they'll get the fact sheet that tells them how to do it. So then again, anybody that wants to go to those fact sheets and download those and use those, they're more welcome to. If you want to set up, I thought I saw a chat someplace.
Yeah. How do I request a
Elizabeth's answering those
for our
questions. So
neighborhood?
thanks, Elizabeth.
This would be, I would just love to send everybody who's getting project funding from NSA, you're gonna be trained in watering by Kelly.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah,
But we can use, I may be digging through your resources and putting together something more formal from that for our,
Mhm.
I know yours is turf based, but a lot of times
Mhm.
you have people establishing new gardens or trees surrounded by turf, and they know they plan to water their gardens right, but we gotta take into account what's being done next door on the turf, because
Right.
it all matters.
Yeah, well, no, and we'd be happy to do an education. I mean, the one thing where I tell people is like, I don't have an automatic irrigation system, so I know very little bit about it. For example, one of the workshops we're putting on this year is the use of a soil moisture sensor that a homeowner can use, and it actually like it'll give them a message on their phone with an app telling them whether the soil's dry or not dry, and you can manage it, control it that way. Steve Melvin, we're hoping that he'll be able to do that because he has some irrigation background, and he also has the system at his home, so he has some hands-on experience with it. We are going to do a webinar on watering raised beds and watering landscape beds and so on. We want to expand it. We focused on the turf irrigation, but we definitely are planning to expand it into good water management practices for all sites.
That would be
Kelly, I know you don't have exact numbers, but there's clearly a significant reduction in water use on the sites that practice this, right? I mean, 50.
Yeah. The problem, I don't know that was something that we asked. I guess that would be a great thing to do, is to have them, just check their water bills or something such as that. But I mean, if the people that said they watered 7 times during the year, and otherwise they would have watered 2 or 3 times a week the whole summer,
Right.
You have to have a reduction.
Right, almost.
But yeah, no, we don't have numbers on that. That's a good point. And I would say request presentations, because even though, we're having the master gardeners teach these one block at a time, we're having them share, but us as extension educators, we definitely could come in and do do these presentations as well for you if needed. If it didn't work for a master gardener to help do it. And we're usually with the master gardeners kind of co-teaching it. So.
It sounds like a great concept, that block captain.
Mhm.
If the block captain's not watering, I won't be watering either.
Yeah, well, unless you have a homeowner association, I don't know. Like I said, I think there's going to be some people, because I've had some master gardeners say that I mentioned it to my neighbor, and there's just no way he's ever going to turn his system off.
Yeah,
But hopefully, you're going to start with those early adopters, and hopefully eventually down the road, we'll get there. So I don't know, Justin, if you want me to just.
yeah, go ahead and finish up there. Yeah.
Can you still see my?
No, while we were doing questions, I unshared you, so go
Yeah.
ahead and,
So do you reshare or do I need to?
nope, you go ahead, take back over.
Okay. Let me find it here. There we go. Okay, see it? Just to make you aware of some of the other things, we have. Doesn't want to go. Okay, just kind of the audience, probably the main audiences that we focus on is we have a program called ProHort where we provide education for green space professionals. And then, of course, the Extension Master Gardeners I've been talking about, and then the consumer horticulturists, so mostly those homeowners. And these are kind of audiences we target, and we do a lot of different things for them, but we kind of weave, good water management practices throughout these when we do education. That's always kind of a focus. Efficient use of our resources. We target kind of climate resilient and weather ready landscapes. Matter of fact, we have a set of fact sheets that Elizabeth was pretty critical on working with. If you weather ready landscapes, if you do a search for that, you'll find our fact sheets that we have on those. They're not all targeted at water, but we really need to be thinking about the effects of climate, especially on watering with the changes, the forecasts or, what they're proposing is going to happen, what's expected to happen. And a lot of it is happening with hotter temperatures, a longer growing season that uses more water, just more drought, warmer overnight temperatures. All of these things are going to have an impact on our watering and irrigation. Again, we focus with our Waterwise we focus on Waterwise landscape design, being plant selection and plant management, of course. So some of the things we push are those practical turf areas, zone planning. So, you're watering plants based on their irrigation needs. So we want to make sure those automatic systems that are watering the lawn are not watering our landscape beds, because if you're overwatering the lawn, you're really overwatering your landscape plant. Mulching and or dense plantings, right plant, right place. These are some of the practices that we kind of focus on. Redirecting stormwater. So one thing I worked quite a bit with for a while was, the reducing runoff from our properties, stormwater runoff that can take some of those pollutants to our surface waters and so on. But I see this as a way for water conservation as well. I mean, why? I always tell people say, well, I can't have a rain garden. I don't get any rain. I always say rain gardens make the most of rain when you do get it. So yes, so it helps to capture it and infiltrate it, add to the soil moisture rather than sending it, down the drain and out of town. Let's make the most of it and capture it and soak it in when we get it. And that can also help with water conservation. A matter of fact, I don't remember what this field research study was. It was one of my PowerPoints, and unfortunately I didn't cite it. But they indicate most established landscape plants perform acceptably with 20 to 40% less irrigation than they receive. And this was from an extension resource, I know that. And we focus on soil health. We're starting to increase more and more what we're doing on developing that good soil structure, which leads to healthy root systems, which again are more efficient at using water and healthier plants that we all want. Some landscape area practices that we feel we need to address, and we guess most people agree with this, but there's poor to no soil management. So we're really trying to focus people's attention. I tell people, we always ask, what kind of soil do you have? Sandy, clay? I always say, instead of asking that, ask, so how's your soil structure? So that's kind of a way to get people to focus on having a good soil structure that's better, whether you have a clay soil or a sandy soil, improving that soil structure. Unsustainable design, we all see good examples of this. Overwatering, of course, is what Waterdogs is targeted at. Treating rainwater is a nuisance, what I mentioned earlier, rather than sending it all into the street and the curb and down the storm drain and out of town. Let's capture, redirect some of that, soak it in, make the most of it when we do get right plant or bad plants, but in a bad place. And just those inefficient irrigation practices, and then over fertilizing. Plants that are over fertilized with nitrogen need more water, and they're not always as healthy. So those are kind of some of the landscape practices. Like Elizabeth, you can share some others, but I think most of us in Extension are kind of focused on when and any opportunity we have in our education is to kind of address these. And we do have some other NEB guides. NEB guides are usually 4 pages long, so they're a little longer, they're a little bit more in depth, but I just wanted to make you aware of them. You can go to extensionpubs.unl.edu and just type in water or type in the search box or pull down menu, go to lawn and garden, and you'll find some of these. You can see the titles there, landscape water conservation. We have drought effects on turf in the landscape. And in this NEB guide, Jim Shield, he retired a while ago, but he talks about a system of deficit irrigation for our lawns, which is basically just showing that, most lawns are actually do better if they're watered less, maybe even a little less than they need. But it's kind of an interesting topic. We did have a stormwater management series, so the rainwater harvesting, the disconnecting downspouts, that's all about capturing and infiltrating. We have some good examples of how to do that in the landscape. So I guess I'm going to stop there. See what people want to. Other questions, what everybody wants to visit about, other questions you have, suggestions for us. Thanks, Elizabeth, for putting in the links.
Yeah. Oh, there's Dean. I was going to say we have a raised hand from Dean. So go ahead.
I have a quick question here. Sorry, I come late into it, but is that the extension service, are you reaching out like to the University of Nebraska golf program and their turf building program? Also, it bothers me too. I travel all around the state. I do enjoy golf, but I'm just really distressed, even a lot of the municipal courses, and we have a number of them here. There just seems to be this overuse of watering. And then also another one area that's getting me is cemeteries. That's even, everybody likes green. And then I've also noticed too, a number of our educational institutions too. So is there going to be especially golf courses, is there going to be a reaching out in that area, especially since the University of Nebraska has a turf program, and then we have a number, almost every small community in Nebraska has a golf course.
Right. Well, in Nebraska Extension, we are the University of Nebraska. And one of our teams, you came on, you said a little bit late, but one of our team members is Rock Gaswa, who's an extension turf grass specialist. So great. that team of specialists, I know they do work with golf courses. Rock just received an award from the Golf Course Association for the work that he's done with buffalo grass and helping golf courses to be more efficient. So I know there's a ways to go, though. On our team right now, we're one of the areas we focused on, the cemeteries is great. With our pro-hort education, those groundskeepers, that is an audience that we invite to our pro-horts, our education. So we reach them that way. Could we do more? Sure, we probably could do more. But again, businesses, I mentioned earlier that we kind of working with our homeowners, especially through the Master Gardener program, but we kind of want to reach out. Columbus is the most industrialized city per capita in Nebraska. If you didn't know that, that's where I live. We just have lots of industry, large businesses with huge lawns, and they turn their systems on and they run. So we kind of want to, how can we go in and talk to them and reach them? And that's another area we want to focus on. So I agree. I mean, golf courses, cemetery where they do groundskeeping, some of these bigger businesses, there's a need there to have them do better job with their automatic irrigation systems. So, thanks, Dean.
Are you still, Kelly? I'll ask a question. You were one of the first people I remember talking about rain gardens. Do you feel like that has caught on or is making a difference, or Any
Um,
pros and cons in your experience?
You know, it's catching on. I see John's on, John Royster's on. He works probably with larger scale things like biological or bioretention gardens. It's catching on some, but slow. Like I said, a lot of people don't know what they are. They're out there, and some people don't even recognize them until you point out this is what this garden is actually doing. I know that last picture I had, I don't know how many people glanced at that, but that was a Columbus rain garden on my last slide. And, you know, we thought we kind of backed away. We weren't doing quite as much with it. We have the neb guides. We have an extension circular that gives videos. Tom Franti did on how to install that rain garden. You know, we kind of backed away, hadn't done quite as much with it anymore. And then lo and behold, the NRDs are wanting to do more with urban water management. And one of the things they want to do is rain gardens. So hopefully we'll be getting back into that a little bit and helping to increase that outreach. But yeah, I said rain gardens are kind of focused on reducing runoff, but that's all of any of those rainwater harvesting practices, in my opinion, are also part of water conservation because you're making the most of that rain when you get it. I've said it 3 times.
Yeah, awesome.
Infiltrating it.
Quick question too about maintenance on rain gardens. That's I have a rain garden too, but I'm just kind of perplexed about the maintenance on that. Any suggestions?
Yeah, well, Justin and Sarah work with them quite a bit too. To me, you maintain them like most any rain garden, but except you do have to watch the inflow. Where the inflow comes in, you have to make sure that doesn't get blocked, so the water's still coming in. That's probably one thing you don't do on a regular rain garden. You know, again, otherwise we try to reduce the amount of time that you're walking, how much you're walking in a rain garden, because you don't want to compact that soil. Otherwise, it's, you know, kind of depends on the plants that you select, and most rain gardens are on homeowners' lawns are fairly small. Of course, on a larger rain garden, which we call a bioretention garden, there's going to be more maintenance. But up for homeowners, I don't know, Justin, Sarah, what else would you say?
Yeah, I think for me, the big thing is, and you were always good at this, Kelly, is reminding people about maintenance, that these gardens have a lot of weed pressure and you can't just walk away from them. Here in Lincoln, I see a lot of bioretention plantings get overtaken pretty quickly with woody weeds and on public places. So we have to be just really diligent about getting after that.
But that's, I mean, and it's maybe a little bit more in rain gardens because there's decent soil moisture, but you know, any garden, if you don't pay attention to it, it's going to be full of weeds.
Yep.
So
I see a lot of space in rain gardens for just making sure we acknowledge that, like Kelly said, we've created really good soil so that we can have moisture soaking in. We've, you know, created this ideal place. Water's captured, the soil's great. So if our weeds are gonna want to grow there, and if we don't acknowledge that, we're just gonna get surprised by it. And it's way worse to be surprised by work than to plan ahead for it. And we can use things, you know, like plant choice plays a big role. Choosing plants that we can recognize the weeds around so that we make weeding easy, that we get the ground covered so that we're not leaving big open patches that are easy for weeds to come in. But the biggest thing I've seen that helps projects handle that is just recognizing upfront that we're planting this working garden, we're creating a perfect growing condition, so let's just not be surprised. Let's budget our time for it.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question, Dean? Or did you have a more specific question when you see them? Good. Thumbs up.
If you wanted us to tell you you're just doing it wrong and actually there's a super easy way, we don't have that answer, sorry.
You know, you were focusing on the maintenance, but even just, you know, establishing rain gardens, you know, and maybe everybody should do this for any gardener, even any home, but to do a soil percolation test when you select the site. Because that is pretty important with rain gardens. You want to make sure, we recommend, I think it's 1/4 of an inch an hour. You basically just dig a hole, 6 to 8 inches deep, and fill it with water. And, you know, they say to measure it to see how far it goes down, but I kind of just fill it with water and then come back in 24 hours and the water better be gone if you're going to put a rain garden there.
Yeah,
But you can make them, if you have a site and the soil is a little bit heavier, clay or something such as that, I mean, you can make them more shallow. And so so the water, because they have overflow on one side, so excess water can flow out. But what happens with time is those roots help to improve that soil as well as the mulch, as well as the root, mainly the plant roots. And as that improves, if you're not walking in there constantly and compacting it further, but it is better to start with, you definitely have to do some soil amendment in a water garden.
yeah, good thoughts. I was gonna ask earlier, you touched on it, soil moisture sensors
Mhm.
on irrigation systems. I don't have a system either, so I'm just curious. They seem to be coming on and being pretty
Yeah.
popular.
Oh, there's systems where there's some of them where it'll be connected to your automatic system, but it's like a pan. And when it rains, that it fills up with water. And then when the water's gone, and what I've heard about, I'm not an expert on this by any means, but what I've heard about those above ground ones that are based on water in a pan is that water evaporates fairly quickly. And then the system turns on. So that's not based on soil moisture. So the only thing I will say is, I think those that are actually based on soil moisture are going to be better than those that are based on, a pan above ground where the water is going to evaporate fairly quickly.
And is that something that keeps the system from coming on typically?
Yes, it overrides the system. Again, this is when we're having somebody do a program for us, and that's where I plan to learn more about them myself. So Elizabeth, do you know more than me? She's not getting on.
No.
Nope. Yeah, we're horticulturists, we're not irrigation. And I said, I don't have an automatic irrigation system. So I definitely do deficit irrigation in my yard.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But yeah, I just know there's different systems out there, and what I'm hearing is if it's based on the soil moisture, it's going to help you conserve water a lot better than if it's based on a pan above ground that once the water's gone, the system turns back on. Those basically shut the system off during rainfall.
Okay,
Is what they do, which is good, which is better than nothing.
right. Better than nothing. Good.
Mhm.
There's good tools out there if we're aware of them.
Mhm.
Anybody else have any questions? We're approaching the end of the hour. I have 100 questions for Kelly, but we better ask him on a coffee and conversation sometime.
I've been collecting all the links everyone shared, so I'll put them in the description on the YouTube video, but then I think Justin usually sends the recordings out on Shady Lane, so I'll send the list of links along with that. Because we've got a lot of resources from Kelly and Elizabeth, so.
Right, that was outstanding. One thing I might point out is the latest issue of the Seed by the Statewide Arboretum. It was reworked this year. It looks a little different, but it's all about rethinking the lawn. So for those people who want to maybe replace their lawn with something more biodiverse, there's really good articles in here. I encourage people to seek that out. I guess that's a plug for becoming a member of the Statewide Arboretum. Anyhow, thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us today. That was outstanding. I learned when you brought up the whole Waterdogs thing, I hadn't even heard of it. I feel sheepish because it's done so.
That's fine. It was pretty new. He said 21 was
Yeah.
our first year, so.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you so much for being in today, and we'll have you back again at some point, I hope.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Otherwise, I hope everybody has a good rest of the day, and we'll see you in a few weeks. We'll keep you notified of upcoming Waterwise webinars. Take care, everybody.